Hi, good morning, good afternoon to some of you as well. This is Alex Bear, and I am here with a fine group of people for today's RIB Spec Talk. So it is August the 7th, and we will be focusing primarily today on Revit integration and BIM integration when it comes to specifications, bringing together documentation in a way that's coordinated and seamless to impact workflows and improve the quality of the outcome of projects. So as a quick introduction to our panelists today, again, my name is Alex Bear. I am a strategic account executive here at RIB and SpecLink. Have been with the company since about 2006. We also have a licensed architect and strategic account executive at RIB, Dory Azar. So he's been a part of our groups and our spec talks as of late, and he's great to work with, and it's got a lot of interesting questions and ways of articulating things.
Thanks, Alex.
We've also got Judah Jackson on the panel with us today. So Judah is a design application specialist and a true what I call Revit guru. So he's got a lot of entertaining things to talk about today when it comes to Revit and Revit integration. So he'll be doing a lot of the speaking. He's kind of our keynote speaker today. We've also got Nish Patel on the line. So he's a group product manager at RIB SpecLink, and he's available to help out as well when it comes to any questions that the group has from today's spec talk. So as we start to get into the features, what can be done within SpecLink Cloud when it comes to BIM integration? Are there any future sort of questions that or ideas that any of you have that you'd maybe like to see in SpecLink, or that would just help to advance the industry in general? So we're going to go ahead and get started at this point. Again, we do have an option for questions in the questions dialog box inside of your GoToWebinar that you can ask any particular questions. We welcome any and all questions, and feel free to make them easy or challenging to us. And we enjoy the challenge. So let's kind of move on forward here. Just as a quick introduction for any of those that may just be joining for the first time for our spec talk, which we do on a bi-monthly basis. Our company, RIB, we're a global leader in software technology. We're fit for purpose for the AEC industry. So we are all around the world. We are actually owned by Schneider Electric. And our company, SpecLink, we're specifically in the world of specification, automation of specification, making the process easier, making it easier to bring in additional players and collaborate on specifications, and just overall reduce time, frustration, improve the quality of your construction documents. Who uses RIB and SpecLink? So we are used by just about everybody. Our core is going to definitely architects and engineers of different trades. We also have many building owners that use SpecLink, especially when it comes to any sort of public money, municipalities, ports, airports, K through 12, healthcare. So anyone that's looking to produce and publish guide specifications to coordinate and sync design intent. We work with a lot of different building product manufacturers to make sure that our content is up to date with the latest manufacturers and newest technologies and newest products. So a little bit of everybody is using SpecLink, and the idea is we're looking not only to link with different automation tools and specifications, but really link the industry. Now, in our previous spec talks, we've really been focusing mainly on the specifications, and unfortunately our good friend and colleague Holly Jordan with Jordan Consultants is not joining us for today's spec talk. So we're going to kind of put specification writing a little bit on the side burner today. What we really again want to be focusing on is BIM integration and how do we best the importance of BIM integration. How do we why do we want to make sure that our documents are coordinated? What happens if the documents aren't coordinated between the specifications and the model, or within the model solely? So, identifying conflicts within the model and being able to do so at a time early in the design and planning process before change orders and expensive things start happening, and just how to allow flexibility You know, a lot of people use Revit in different ways. We certainly are appreciative and understanding of that. And our software tool is designed to, work in a sort of flexible manner that accommodates different workflows and the kind of things and the different types of goals that are important to our end users. Again, primarily architects, engineers, also building owners that want to see visually the model, especially in early phases of design, again, to validate the design standards and the spaces of the building are in fact what they want them to be. So these spec talks, just to let you know, they're definitely influenced by your attendance and your questions. There are a lot of different recommendations previously on BIM integration. So by popular demand, we are here today to discuss this. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and actually pass the baton over to Judah Jackson. So he is, again, our Revit specialist and our BIM guru. And Judah, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, I'll go ahead and change the presentation mode over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Alex. And it is a privilege to see everybody virtually on this Spec Talk. Thank you so much. My name is Judah Jackson. As previously mentioned, I'm a design application specialist attached to the product development team here at RIB. And basically what that means is that it's my responsibility to take a look at how our software is working from the perspective of the user and be able to kind of be present inside the software with a set of eyes for the users from the initial design and conceptualization of our BIM integration all the way down to its deployment and day-to-day activities, and being able to go through and troubleshoot anything that goes sideways and assist clients in getting the most out of it. Now, a lot of people ask questions about why at RIB do we do our BIM integration kind of differently from what you may have seen in from other providers. Now, if I did my GoToWebinar correctly, you should be seeing a building on a Revit background right now. And so this is something for those of you who've seen me demo it. This is a building that actually exists in Southern England. So we didn't use as a demo project any of the pre-worked Autodesk buildings that demonstrate Revit functionality very well, but aren't really kind of like the work that you do. But instead, we chose a real facility and a real Revit project, so you can actually see the real benefits of having a system like SpecLink Cloud. And I think where it starts initially is just explaining, how BIM opens the door to better specification writing simply because of better information management. If you take a look at the screen that's here, this is actually female water closet that's in the building that you just saw earlier. And this screen could have been done by AutoCAD back in 1982 or anything like that. The thing is, when we were designing with lines, arcs, and circles as a specification writer, I had to take a look at the elements in here, use my training to identify what those elements are. And because those elements were just two-dimensional elements, I then had to refer to other areas of the construction set to get the information that I need about those elements, right? It's just how we did things. There's a little tag there or a number, a schedule. I look at unschedule, I find that number, and then I read the information about that particular object. It was a coordination nightmare. And one of the reasons that Revit was so popular in its inception is that it kind of took that responsibility away from us, because now the information that I need about the object is actually hosted on the object itself. And this information is the information that populates the schedules and everything else. So when you're considering BIM integration from the perspective of a spec writer, you have to have a clear focus on what you intend that integration to accomplish. And there has to be some initial benefits. But then, once you establish that foundation, what we'll find is that because of how Revit works as an application, it opens the door to broader areas of functionality. But you want to establish that foundation first. So back in 2017, when we first started this effort, our foundation was, okay, what takes spec writers a lot of time? And having spec writers on our staff, they were there to for us to ask them, right? And it was the back and forth to a man. It was the back and forth through the plan set to check, verify, recheck that they got all the appropriate information about an element as simple as a toilet in a bathroom or something like that, but that there was nothing that they didn't know that was going to be a gotcha when they tried to put the building together. And that could be very difficult from a two-dimensional perspective, even with, you know, two-dimensional plan review programs like Bluebeam that make the task easier in that you're not shuffling papers. But still, all of the information is never in one place at one time, right? It's scattered throughout the plan set. So the question was obvious. It's like, if we've got this building information model, what we need to do is find a way of presenting this on a platform that maintain the relationship between the three-dimensional element and the data that defines the three-dimensional element. So it's one-stop shopping for the spec writer. All they have to do is go to that particular object, click on it, and then they'll have the information that they need to be able to specify that object. Now, at first, no one likes working without a net. So at first, you know, the position is we'll use this platform in addition to the plan sets, but we'll let it evolve naturally in that SpecLink Cloud's BIM integration becomes the first place you go to achieve that objective. And the objective, again, is understanding and learning more about your specs. So that was the idea behind the BIM integration in SpecLink Cloud. On the right side of the screen, in a dedicated three-dimensional view, we actually marry the graphic elements to their data from Revit. So every element that you see on the right-hand side of the screen actually has all the information that would appear in the element type panel in Revit, transferred over into a platform that exists separate and apart from Revit. Okay, so our BIM integration doesn't require taking an expensive seat of Revit off of the production line as far as construction documents are concerned and dedicating it to the purpose of specification writing or even leveraging it. Because when you do that, you get all the benefits of Revit, right? But you also get the drawbacks too. If you design something that's purpose built for the specification writer, then that tool is going to provide them with everything they need without necessarily increasing the subscription footprint of Autodesk in any one company. And don't tell Autodesk that, but you know, we were able to achieve that with this. Now, the next thing is, how does the project get to SpecLink Cloud, right? So in the BIM integration for SpecLink Cloud, we had to account for the fact that these projects exist in several different areas. You can go to the BIM file area here. And, you know, typically project can exist on your C drive on your local machine, somewhere on your internal computer network, but more and more frequently, what we're dealing with is projects that exist on the cloud, right? Everybody was familiar with BIM 360, and now Autodesk is kind of sunsetting BIM 360 in favor of Autodesk Construction Cloud. So we had to make accommodations for that. In this case, our friends at Autodesk were very helpful because they were able to create the Autodesk Docs feature that adds as a local resource access to our program or our projects that are up on Autodesk Construction Cloud. The project that you're currently seeing is one of those. So this project, the project files for this project are right here. And you'll notice on Autodesk Construction Cloud, I have status indicators for the project. Now, these could sometimes be blue clouds because they haven't been locally synced lately, but if they've been synced, then you get this green dot with a check mark in it. And that's very important because if you see that green, that means that that project is good to go to SpecLink Cloud. And all you have to do is highlight the projects that are related to the Revit files that are related to your project, hit open. SpecLink Cloud is going to identify the master file, the file into which all the other RVT files are linked, and then stage it up for upload. Once you click upload, it's going to take the package up to SpecLink Cloud, and our cloud-based servers that run a version of Revit that runs in memory on the computer only, there's no visual aspect to it, are going to automate the process of exporting a file package that you use to create both the image you see on the right and the accessible data that you see on the left. So again, our goal is to make sure to make it easier for a specification writer by providing all the information he needs in the moment that he needs it without having to look around in many different areas for it. In this case, we allow the specification writer to go through his work either by category or by building level. If I go to building level, then I can see the level indicators. These names are all the same names that you would see if you took a look at the elevation view in Revit. And if I want to work on all the elements that are on level 1, all I have to do is adjust my filter, so that's all I see. And then I'm working through those individual elements as well. But we also allow you to do your work by element category. Here you see all of the categories of elements that are reporting objects within this view. Okay, so the presence of the object itself is what makes SpecLink Cloud aware that the object needs to be specified. And that's an important thing, because for other products of this types, oftentimes you have to go back through and make sure a specific parameter exists inside your object information panel for the software to be aware that that's an element that may need to be specified. But take a look at this. There's a variety of things going on here. Some of this stuff, information is completely blank. Sometimes it's filled in. We know that many of you work in different ways. Some may use Keynotes, some may not. Some may use assembly descriptions, some may not. So we can't make our product dependent on any one aspect that's going to force a BIM manager to have to go back through and update all of their content to put specific information in specific areas to make the spec writing software work. So what do all elements in Revit that appear in a 3D view have? They have a family name, type, and category, okay? So they've got a name, type, and category by default, so that's what we key on. We're able to take a look at that which is common, that which occurs in Revit simply from its mere use. And so that's why we call this a walk-up solution. This isn't going to require any additional effort on the part of the BIM manager to have to update the content for use with SpecLink Cloud. Now, when we go to casework, you can see another feature. Because we understand how the information in Revit works, and there's actually a representation of all of the information that's in this particular Revit project in the form of a data file that's working in the background of SpecLink even as we speak. And this data file contains the unique numeric fingerprint of every object inside the Revit model, and that's the element ID number. Okay, so I can then create instances of this particular object, and I can ask the viewer to show me where this object is located just by clicking on it. So when I do that, the viewer is going to move to that object in three-dimensional space and show me just where that object is installed. Now, this is a follow-up session in this particular project, and I know that because this object's already been specified. So once I click on this object, the SpecLink Cloud tells me the spec sections that are related to this particular object in Revit. And I'm aware of that because of this blue R feature right here. So this object relates to two different sections right now, the rough carpentry and the architectural wood casework. What's great about this is that what the BIM engine in SpecLink Cloud is just another way of activating and deactivating specs. All of this relates to the same project that you typically build in the sections area here. So you can actually get your project started before the BIM model even exists. And then at the normal milestones where the BIM model would be provided to the spec writer to upload and start his work, then he can have access to it here. But the difference is in this information panel, I've got all the information I need to specify this particular piece of casework, up to and including URLs from the manufacturer. It can take me directly to updated information on the manufacturer's website. Look carefully at how the information is organized. Type properties, instance properties. You see, you'll see sometimes viewers for Revit that don't really speak Revit very well, because you'll see a flood of information that may or may not be relevant and not sorted in any particular manner in any information panels. But this is just what pertains to this object and type and instance. And oh yeah, it includes the element ID number too. So if we have to go back and make a change to this object, I provide that number to anybody that uses Revit, and they can go directly to that object as soon as the project opens and make any adjustments needed. That's why an interactive 3D view is the best way to understand a model. It provides you with clarity in that you've got eyes on the model as it develops, but it's really a virtual simulation of the building project in process. and it can enable you to perform QA, QC work on the model and really check the work of your collaborators on the model. For instance, you see these discs in front of the sink. You don't have to wonder what those elements are. You can actually query them by clicking on them, and they'll tell you, hey, this is a lighting fixture that's hovering about 18 inches off the floor. So I need to talk to whoever did these lights about how to use view range properly, so lights can appear both on the plan, but also be in the correct position in the model. I think model practice is one thing. Model practice and quality is one of the ancillary benefits of SpecLink Cloud, because we want to be able to do a better job of specification writing. But along the way, if we get improvements in our model, then that helps us to achieve the goal of better model quality, and perhaps even having models that persist in giving us recurring revenue even after the project is completed, as they're promoted into the operational phase of the facility to do things like facility management or security or things like that. So all of that is possible if you're able to go in and be able to have access to this intelligent model as a frame of reference. All of the information in one place at one time for the spec writer. Now, BIM also opens the door for greater levels of functionality. And so we always want to do what we can to improve communication between the specification writers and the practitioners that are on the team that are working with Revit. Sometimes the specification writer is the person that's working in Revit, right? So what we've done is inside SpecLink Cloud, we've actually given it the capability of creating keynotes. Now, these keynotes are based on the project itself. So I can go to this project line and hit export keynotes. And what it's going to do is it's going to give me a keynote text file that I can use in Revit, whether or not that specific spec section was activated using the BIM integration. Okay, so that doesn't make any difference. Any active spec section that's on this project can be exported as a keynote text file. And once I download it here, I can actually open it and go to my download screen right there and just open a panel. And I'll show you what this looks like in its native form. If you've never seen a tab delimited keynote text file that's staged up for use in Revit, this is what it looks like, okay? Revit consumes the text file and uses it in its keynote system. And then any keynote that's in any spec section that's been activated in this project can be applied as a keynote to elements within the Revit model. The way it looks in Revit is kind of like this. Let me pull up 2024 again. And in this area, if we go into our annotation tab, and what we're going to do is just in our keynote settings area, let's browse, and we'll go to the downloads folder and just take a look at that keynote text file I just created, and go all the way up here. There we go. Click open. And once I hit view here, you see it takes that tab delimited text file and turns it into a list of divisions and section numbers that can now be used as annotations on the objects in question, based on what's been activated up to this point inside SpecLink. So if I close here and click OK here, I can go and do an element-based keynote right now. And if I wanted to tag this piece of casework that we were looking at, and remember, your keynote text tags themselves are going to vary based on what your keynote family looks like, what the family for that keynote looks like. But here we can go into our wood class plastics and composites division 6, 064100 and click OK. And that not only is going to populate that keynote for this instance, but every other instance in the project. It's similar in SpecLink in that in SpecLink now, every time this project is referred, that particular piece of casework or any other casework of that type is referred to in SpecLink, it's going to associate it with those particular specs. Now, another thing that we had to make account for is that our projects are iterative in nature. So when I go here and I open up this project, I'm going to be in and out of this project several times from design development down to the end of our CDs. So we gave it a versioning tool that we can use to compare BIM files between the current and the past. So here is the earlier version of the file. Here's the latest. There's a bit of a difference in element count there. I can hit compare BIM file and click here for the older version and do a comparative analysis across all categories. And then once I run that compare, what it's going to do is show me everything that's changed. So now I know exactly how much additional work I have to do over and above the work that was done earlier to create that spec project. So what this is going to do is, what this is actively doing is allowing you to better take advantage of your investment in building information modeling, to be able to bring the spec writers to the table, give them their own platform where they can have eyes into the Revit model. And sometimes the things that they find are pivotal because the spec writers are some of the smartest people on your team as far as how a building actually has to go together over and above what you see on the board. And there's no better way of being aware of that than with SpecLink Cloud and the BIM integration for it. Now, along the way, we had to also account for the fact that you have really good customers out there that may have their own specific needs project-wise as it relates to specs. So, you know, we've also offered assistance to people who have developed office masters for those big customers, where they have their own dedicated set of specifications for a specific customer that's been carefully curated. We can actually give you the capability of even exporting that into a text file that Revit can easily use so that you have access to all of that. So what you do is on the Office Masters page, instead of projects, you just click Export Keynotes here, and it's going to give you the entire library, everything that's in that Office Master. Now, this is going to take a few minutes to export, but it will in the background. But you import it into Revit in a similar manner to what you saw earlier with the way I handled the project-related keynotes. And that's just the beginning. You know, more and more as we engage with you, our customers, we are hearing ideas like, wow, so you can do this, you can do that. What's coming next and things like that. So by establishing a foundation that says, hey, look, we're not really going to build based on the spec solutions that evolved around a 2D workflow. That was great for that time, but we're going to put that to the side. And we're going to take a careful look at building information modeling and select the areas of maximum impact. The first of that is being, how can we give these specifiers a better reference tool so they can fully understand what's going on inside their building projects? And we were able to achieve that goal. What's on the board next? Well, you know, that's classified, but we do have some very exciting innovations to come, and they are all being driven by the fact that we know how Revit works, and we know how much you value building information modeling. So we're going to be able to achieve even greater functionality within this tool in the future. But this is supposed to be a discussion, and I'm not hearing any questions yet. We have any questions?
You know, Judah, you have the best presentation delivery ever. It's impossible to interrupt you. And I think it's just so great to listen to you do your thing. But we do have one question that's come up a couple times that I'd love to hear how you answer it for us. So the one question is about refreshing the model. So is it a live sync? Is it automatically refreshed? Is it a manual? We have to re-upload the project again at another interval. What is the process and maybe best practice of making sure that model is as up to date as possible?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And so what we did initially was we don't want to drive things too far out of the familiar for people. So the workflow that SpecLink was designed to accommodate is a workflow that's very similar to the workflow you're using now. In that at a certain milestone, you'll deliver your plan set to your specification writer. Basically, that would be the milestone at which you would upload the building information model. Now, as the model progresses and everything, you then select when the next milestone is, and at that milestone, you would upload the next version of the BIM file or of the BIM file. So if I hit my versioning tool here, you can see when this file was uploaded. Now these two were uploaded on the same day because I was building a demo back in 2020. But it's the exact same file name, exact same project file package, and I just uploaded it at a later time. And by that time, the model had progressed, which is the reason the compare tool is such a good idea. So yeah, there's no automatic update of the model in SpecLink right now. It'll be the decision of the designer and specification writer as to at what point the model's evolved enough to need to be uploaded again, but we will give you tools that keep you aware of those changes. Did I lose everybody?
Hey, Dory, you might be on mute.
Okay.
I was on mute. You know what? That's good because I practiced the question and now I'm going to deliver it perfectly. The question is, does this all work with Revit LT?
Yes.
There you go. It's one word answer. Perfect.
Yeah, in fact, yeah, and yeah, it works just fine with Revit LT.
Excellent. How would you suggest, I'm just scanning for the next question here. Let's go with Michael's question here. So Michael is asking, how would you suggest we build up a model with the element information as a standard? Would it be a test model? Goal is to make it more accurate over time.
Yeah, it's funny because the workflow that we've kind of created here, where it identifies the elements in the model, lends itself to the system learning over time about all the elements in your model. But you know, you kind of sometimes want to take that shortcut and say, let me just get my Revit template file and create those elements of type and go ahead and pre-associate them with the spec sections that define them, and just have that as kind of an office master project. But what we found is the easiest way to do it is to just let the system evolve as your model processes do, because invariably you're going to get you're going to be distracted and do other things like that. It's an easier workflow that to just let SpecLink learn on a project to project basis what spec sections are typically associated with your modeling activities. Not that you can't try it, and we'll support you if you do. If you upload a model that contains everything in your template family, we'll make sure that model is available to you, and you'll be able to leverage that in SpecLink. But usually, what we designed the program for is to be able to be adopted on the run, kind of as these projects are going, and get the benefits from it that way.
All right, Judah, we've got another question from Marjorie. And Marjorie's, I recognize that name. She's a power question asker every week, and I absolutely love it. Marjorie's wondering if we can demonstrate how to navigate and walk around the model. Is that something you can pull up and show us how easy that is?
Yeah. Ordinarily I do, but I'm a bit pressed for time today. Okay, so one of the great things about being in the interactive 3D model here is that this really functions. I mean, most of you guys don't know that the most popular VR device is the computer monitor. So this is actually virtual reality here. And what I'm using is my arrow keys and my mouse. So my mouse controls the direction in which I'm going, and my arrow keys moves me in that specific direction. So I can actually explore the model in the context of a three-dimensional person. How do I know that? Well, if I look down hard enough, you can see me and see my hands move as I'm walking. So we are actually simulating the built environment and delivering a set of tools that's here. Now, there is a user guide for SpecLink that describes in detail how to use the mouse and how to use the elements on the HUD panel. But you know, if you're familiar with the operations of any of the 3D games, Minecraft or things like that, then this is a very familiar interface, and it's very easy to use it to maneuver through your models in any stage of completion.
All right, excellent demonstration, Judah, and that was reinforced by Greg, who literally said, "Great presentation, Judah. Thank you." So you're getting some positive feedback in the comment section here.
Well, I haven't showed you guys the best part yet.
Oh, well, save it. Hold on for the end. We've got a question about the view that you need to export from Revit. So do you need to be in a 3D view in Revit before you link it with SpecLink?
Okay, so we don't actively link Revit with SpecLink. Okay, what happens is the Revit project is uploaded to the automation servers, And the automation servers are actually programmed to look for a 3D view prior to executing the process of building the model. But that actually leads me to another point I wanted to make. And let's switch back to Revit itself. And I'm going to close this particular model and open another version of it. You see, it's not often that one person's going to be specifying everything, right? This is a fully federated model and representing all the disciplines. You see structural, MEP, and architectural there. I don't need to save these particular changes. But what if we wanted to do a bit less, or we wanted to isolate just the portions of the model that we're attempting to specify at the time? And this can work whether it's on the GC side, you're trying to check specs for a single floor at a time, or it's on the architectural side and you're only interested in specifying certain building elements at any given time. In Revit, you can create multiple views and view types. Here I've isolated the lower level of that building only. And I've done that using a section box in Revit. So when I take this view and publish it to SpecLink Cloud, what I now have access to, and let's shift gears to that particular project. And sorry about that. The screen kind of jumped on. Okay. And in the files for that project now, I can actually go in and widen out my view and let's summon the first floor. So you can actually use view templates, all of your view related tools, section boxes, etc., to isolate particular areas within Revit that you want to focus, or you want to be the focus of your activities as far as specification goes. And when you do that, well, the only thing that you see here are the elements that are contained within the section box. So it obscures everything else. So you can use view templates to do this. You can use section boxes to do this. Basically, all I did in this case is this is the exact same model that you saw before. I activated the section box and made my section box view the primary view when Revit started up using this particular tool here under the Manage Starting View. I made this the starting view, uploaded it to SpecLink Cloud, and now I'll have just this lower level that I can work on, and then I can build on it, right? And it's going to have the same name over and over again. So it allows me to use a very powerful filtering and viewing tools inside Revit to greater effect in SpecLink Cloud, isolating only the work that the specification writer may want to do at any given time. And for all you Revit practitioners, you know, your visibility graphics include all manner of elements that are within the Revit file. If it's seen in the 3D view, SpecLink Cloud's BIM integration will let you specify it, and it will completely ignore things that are not seen in this particular view. Any other questions?
Oh, there's tons of questions, Judah. You got people going, and people are asking. So let's find ourselves a nice question here. I saw one about decimals. Where did that go? The list keeps refreshing on me here. So
hey, Dory, I'll just jump in. Judah, if you don't mind, the general vein of the question that's coming in is with respect to the Keynote export and what's getting exported. So can we show them, walk them through the Keynote export, maybe lay it side by side with a section that's active, and we can go through that quickly. But the general questions are, hey, what's the syntax? How are we figuring out the suffix that's getting appended to the section ID? Is it generic? Are we sort of referencing any Revit model content related to that? And just how does that get printed? What are we looking for in general? So if you can speak into that, that'd be great.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. So probably best to go back to the other version of this file for this. Now, as far as what controls how the Keynote file looks when it's exported, and I can pull up that Keynote text file again to show you. When at the project level, the Keynote export is going to organize itself based on the structure of the file that the Keynote's based on. So if it's an Office master, if it's an RIB master, then our structure as far as division and paragraph goes will be what's reflected here in a tab delimited fashion. But as at SpecLink, we try to be as accommodating as possible. So the formatting of your particular spec section may vary, but what the result will be the same. It will be a tab delimited text file that that the Revit product can consume and allow you to use for keynoting. Now, based on the structure of your current Office Master, you may need to make some adjustments as far as what the text file looks like in Revit to make sure that the tab delimiter is working properly. Because a lot of people might not have had that in mind when they created their original Keynote file. But those adjustments are usually minor and something that someone could do in an afternoon or so. But this is basically based on the RIB master spec section file.
All right. Okay, so let's ask another question here. Question coming in is, do I need to have Revit installed on my machine to see this 3D viewer and do model element mapping?
No.
Hard no. All right.
Yeah, this was designed in the days where spec writing and Revit was often two disparate functions. So we created SpecLink Cloud to function independent of Revit. Now it needs the Revit project, of course, but you don't need any version of Revit or a Revit license period to be able to see this.
Okay, excellent. There's another question here from John who is asking, and he thinks he may have missed it, but do we have the option to organize data by assembly code?
Well, the use of assembly codes and assembly code descriptions we leave to the client right now. I mean, basically SpecLink doesn't trigger off of any particular assembly or assembly code description that it receives from the Revit project. So the data organization within the Revit project would determine how the data appears in SpecLink. SpecLink, at least right now, is simply an enhanced way of viewing what's going on in Revit from the spec writer's aspect of it. But assembly codes and assembly descriptions aren't required. In fact, you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, this doesn't even have those.
Okay. Let's, Nish, you got a good one you want to read, or you want me to go next?
Yeah, I think, Dory, I'll let you speak into that, but I'm going to flip the screen from Judah in a moment. I think I'm seeing a lot of questions around the keynotes. I do want to talk through the logic in general and how easy it is to work with this. So I'll let you go through a couple of questions, and then I'm briefly going to steal the screen from Judah and talk about how the keynotes work to begin with.
All right, no problem.
Well,
So,
I'll have to,
my screen, so go ahead.
I mean, this might be a good time for me to switch to you as a presenter, Nish, so you can broadcast your screen. All right, and then I will stop showing my screen, and whenever you're ready.
Nish, did you want me to do a couple more questions first?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, no problem. We've got a question from Gene here that's asking, can you customize the export format keynotes to only have letter suffixes?
Nish, you taking that one? You want me to?
Go ahead, Judah. I'm trying to figure out my screen. Give me a second.
Okay, so the export, the format that the keynotes take on is going to be based on the spec book that you're currently using. Does that, if you're using a letter format instead of numeric in your Office Master, then that's what's going to appear in the Keynote file.
All right. Let's see what other questions that we've got. What happens to the Keynote file data if my model is updated? Does the element suffix change?
Boy, they teed that one up for you, didn't they, Nish? You guys are gonna.
I can only buy you a little more time here. No, maybe that's
you guys are gonna love this part.
Yeah. Let me know if you can see my screen.
I can, yes.
Okay, perfect. So I think for everybody on the call, what I've just done is I've laid out sort of SpecLink Cloud on the side. So it's a side-by-side view. And what I just did was I exported the Keynote file. And again, it's the easiest thing ever. You just need to go to the project dashboard, and you just click on this contextual menu, and you just have export keynotes. And within 5 seconds, you're going to have a file, and you can download that. So that's the only thing that I've done right now. And I've just opened up one of the sections over here, right? So I'll probably talk through the background of what we're trying to achieve with Keynotes, right? So as a spec writer, you're trying to communicate what's the scope of this project to begin with. And that's what Keynotes are supposed to, in our humble opinion, sort of convey over. And this scope could be choices of either product assemblies, either systems, or these could be specific products or their configurations at the end of the day. So what I've just done is, here's a section. It deals with hollow metal doors. And you'll see that I have different sort of systems that I have sort of activated. So what I'm trying to convey is that, hey, as part of this project, which is Eagle Mountain EcoStructure, the scope of this project when it comes to so-and-so section related to hollow metal doors is, hey, I would like non-fire rated hollow metal doors. I really hope that if somebody does that, they do have decent fireproofing or fire protection systems. You've got thermally insulated doors and so on and so forth, right? So what we principally look at, which is the current logic, is we look at any segments, any paragraphs that are active under the section includes article. That's all that we're looking for to begin with. And what the Keynote export does is it simply prints each of these paragraphs and it assigns it a unique code. So I'm just going to switch over to the right side of my screen so you have a smaller screen than usual. But you'll see that, hey, it's a Division 8 openings, and we're looking at 081113, which is the section that's in question. And you'll see that, hey, non-fire rated hollow metal doors, that's A00. So we follow a syntax, which is the 6-digit CSI sort of section ID, followed by a sequential numbering, which is a mix of numbers and alphabets. So it's an alphanumeric code, which is A00, B00, C00. So we just jump to the next sequence to begin with. So that's when it comes to Keynotes 101. We look at the section includes article level. We look at any active paragraphs under that, and then we sort of print that and we assign them codes. So pretty simple. You don't need to have a BIM, sort of a BIM model for that. And this is a way of effectively communicating scope, which can evolve, right? Now, coming back to the advanced question, which is what happens when there's a revision, when the project scope changes, or we do value/vulture engineering, in either case, as some of you like calling it. And if the scope changes, we persist those codes. So what I mean by that is if I was to, let's say, exclude non-fire hollow metal doors over here, and I'm to sort of include this scope over here, which is hollow metal doors, and maybe I'm now adding fire rated metal doors as well. All that we're going to do is assign new codes to this additional scope. If it was an older scope, that gets excluded, and I'll just do that quickly. I'm just going to go over here. I'm again going to just resize my screen. It's a small screen, but I'm going to export this Keynote, and we'll sort of quickly just see the difference between the two. So here's the newer version. I'm just going to scroll quickly down to it and just adjust my screen as well as we speak through that. Okay, so you'll see that 08113, that's where this sort of begins. So you got division 8 openings, you've got hollow metal doors. You'll see that we had first assigned the code A00. That's no longer part of this list. The F and the G, these are the new scope that got appended. So it went in a sequential order. It looked at, hey, what was the last code, which was E, and then it sort of assigned the F and the G to the new scope that was added. The older codes, they remain as is. So we also persist the codes. So you can be rest assured that you can be in, like this is design and iteration management 101, which is you don't have to worry about persistence of codes. Any new scope that gets added, it gets appended a new code, and anything that's excluded, it just gets excluded out of that. So, hey, all that you would have to do is pass this over to your Revit user. They would just refresh the Keynote file in Revit, and they would also be able to see the discrepancies over there. That's also part of our longer term roadmap, where we want to sort of provide Keynote management capabilities so that you can customize the suffixes that get applied. We understand individual firms might need that, but today the workaround could be as simple as just taking this tab delimited file, opening it up in an Excel file, and just changing those suffixes to something that's more bespoke to you. But I hope that this answers a lot of questions around, hey, what's the syntax? How does it get exported? What happens when changes are pushed? And so on and so forth.
And as far as management goes, don't forget that a lot of you are managing Keynotes on shared resources, Autodesk Construction Cloud and things like that. So if Revit's Keynote system is designed to point to that shared folder, all you have to do is create the Keynote text file and overwrite the one that's there. And it's going to pick that up automatically the next time Revit loads, and all of the updates will be added to the Keynote system without having to go through and reread that file.
Great. Well, thank you everybody here, Nish, Dory, especially you, Judah. You've been extremely helpful here today in helping to outline some of the features and functionality of the Revit integration. So we want to kind of begin to wrap up today's Spec Talk, and hope to have everybody to join us for our next Spec Talk section. So let me actually, I think if you can pass the controls back over to me for screen sharing, Judah. Perfect.
Actually, Nish has it.
Okay, perfect. So again, as we've previously discussed in our Spec Talk sessions, we are going to take the opportunity to send an email out to everybody that did have the chance to join us here today. A part of that email, there's actually an interactive survey. So if there are additional topics that you'd like to see discussed for future Spec Talks, we'd love to have the opportunity to understand that from you, so that we can look at our, our next groups of itineraries for future Spec Talks. Also, if you have any questions regarding SpecLink as a current user, or if you are a interested user and you'd like to take a closer look at SpecLink to consider the program for your firm, we'd love to have a closer one-on-one conversation with you. We do have the opportunity to set up a individualized one-on-one online web demonstration with your company to review SpecLink holistically, have the opportunities to review your workflows or specific goals, and see how SpecLink could be a fit for you. We do also have a free 14-day trial that does come with the system. So we want to make sure that everybody here has the opportunity to take a look at that. That link will also be available in our follow-up email to the group. So as far as our next Spec Talk, that's slated for August the 21st. And we're going to be discussing how to bring junior professionals into the spec game. So our special guest will be, once again, Holly Jordan for that particular Spec Talk from Jordan Consultants. And we'll be on hand to share her expertise and to provide practical tips for making the most out of SpecLink. So we know a lot of folks are bringing younger project managers, junior professionals into specification writing. And, specification writing, again, not something taught in college, not something that you just wake up one day and really know how to do. So this is exactly why SpecLink is here, is to help different walks of architects and engineers to bring together good, competent, coordinated, up-to-date specifications for their projects in a timely manner. So we'll look forward to that. And again, greatly appreciate everybody's time, everybody's interest in these spec talks. Your interest, your participation is really what drives our spec talks and the continuance. So thank you everybody for your time, your interest today. Again, my name is Alex Baer, and we look forward to speaking with you soon. Thanks so much.